term gamification was coined in 2002 and refers to when you take gaming elements from board games or video games, and apply them to a situation that is normally considered a bit boring. So for instance, these are situations such as the classroom, the workplace, and even in some cases, companies have applied it to the shopping experience to try and encourage their consumers to purchase more. What happens when you gamify something is you take elements from the game, such as obstacles, reaching a goal, facing a challenge, rewards, scoring points, and things like that, and you apply them to this situation. It aims to encourage user engagement. So far it's been quite successful. But Meg, I know that people get a bit bored listening to me talk, so instead I prepared some notes for you. Have a read through them and see if you think that user engagement has been enhanced by gamification. I think I've put forward a very convincing argument. Once you've done that though, if you want to learn more about military history, I would go back to basics. Maybe learn a bit more about why military history video games are quite popular. I would suggest chatting to the gamer. War games are actually my favourite sort of game at the moment. I've been playing Age of Empires, Assassin's Creed, Battlefield. There are so many cool games to choose from. It is not so much that I'm recreating what happened in the past, but it's more that I'm getting a greater understanding of what it was like during that time. So for instance, when I play Assassin's Creed, I'm learning about the names of historically significant figures, or I'm learning about events that happened around that time. And even more so, I get to see what clothing they wore, what sort of weapons they were using, what resources were available to them during that time period, and I get to see what their buildings were like the architecture. What was it like to live back then? I'm being immersed in the event, and I think that's really cool. In the classroom, we just use dusty old textbooks and things like that, and history just seems really dull and boring. But when I'm playing a video game, I feel like I'm actually experiencing an event or a time, and that's really fun. If they made the classroom more like this video game thing, I think I would enjoy going to class a lot more. I think that it's very important that history is engaging. And if we go back to the conversation that you had with the gamer before, I think the key thing of what they said was that video games made them feel like they were immersed into the event. So when it comes to military history, I think there should be a way for that element to be taken out of video games and brought into the classroom. At the moment when they teach military history, it's often about the number of people that died, or the name of the battle, or people who were in the battle, or geographical location of the battle. And these are things, although they're important, but there's something that doesn't really engage the learner. Now, I'm not saying we take the element of violence from video games, but I'm saying we should take that sort of immersive experience out of it, get people to learn hands-on. So when it comes to military history, rather than show about the weapons and things like that in a classroom environment, maybe instead you could talk about the political situation that was happening at the time. So what was the global situation? And maybe try and get children to think about how they would approach that situation and make them aim for world peace. This reminds me of a game created by John Hunter. He's a teacher over in Virginia. He called the game the World Peace Game. What he did with this game was that he would divide his school children into groups, and they would represent a nation. And in that group, they would have to face all these different issues. So they face economic crisis, political situations, and even sometimes they would face war.
I won the game! Yay! Not so fast, Meg.
Do you really think it's appropriate to turn war into a game for the classroom? War is an event of great suffering and tragedy and loss. What sort of attitude do you think you'd be developing in students if you made it into a game? Maybe you might distance them from the realities of war. Instead, we should be teaching them to show respect. Since the introduction of gamification in education, there have been some games generated for the classroom that have been considered too controversial. For instance, one game from the Playing History series called the Slave Trade game was considered by many to be inappropriate. In the game, you were the slave. Well, the student was the slave, and they were reenacting a situation from the 18th century slave trade. So, as the slave, they had to complete tasks for their slave master and prove their loyalty to them. Many teachers were very disappointed in this game, and it was actually recalled. The controversial nature of this slave trade game started a discussion amongst teachers and parents about whether some subjects should be gamified. One educator, Christopher Allen, said, based on the controversy of this game, maybe we should learn from that and look at other subjects. Maybe some things shouldn't be gamified because you don't want to come across as insensitive or disrespectful, or in the case of the slave trade game, people thought it was a bit racist. In my opinion, if you're going to gamify something that's so controversial, such as war, you're not going to ever make everyone happy. People are going to find it inappropriate, people are going to be upset about it. And that makes me think it's too difficult to do in the classroom. Maybe we should leave things like war to the video game industry. Maybe in the classroom we should just read out of the textbook. I think that shows the most respect. So it's not necessarily game over, but the point of this game is to show a different perspective on gamification. I do not deny that gamification has helped increase engagement in the classroom, but I do think that some topics shouldn't be gamified, such as military history. I think it's inappropriate to turn it into a game and it should just be left with the textbook. But you might have a different opinion, and maybe history does need to level up and gamification is the answer. But I have to wait and see. Hope you enjoyed watching.